correspondent in an awkward position that is rare.
Pure Imagination with Rachel Trachtenberg and Julia Cumming.
What are the direct changes that we can make or things that we can think about or fight for now?
The beginning steps, I guess. I think everyone in the studio is having a little too much fun.
Not really sure what that was. That's never happened before. I'm sorry that.
What was the question again?
The Vinyl Experience with Paul Cavalcanti.
It's Pinback.
It's still going, the fires on, reflecting on the oceans, burning beachheads.
Radiohead Super Collider. Vinyl Experience.
And the Lifeboat Hour, featuring Michael Rupert of the critically acclaimed documentary Collapse.
George from Connecticut, are you there? There was something on the web about there was a coordinated shutdown of the Occupy movement. Basically, they want to snatch people and put them in indefinite detention, even in the U.S. Seems like we're redoing the whole creeping fascism exactly why we broke off with them. I don't think it's creeping anymore, brother. I think it's doing a 100-yard dash right now.
The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
You are listening to PRN, Progressive Radio Network.
You know the story. Yeah.
And
then he stooped him.
But that's exaggerated. I investigated it. Just let me know when we put these on.
Put this on,
our official
and
phone.
we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm so glad you're here.
An hour? Or
55 minutes,
55 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
And do we have any interruptions, or is it just us talking?
No, yes. I'll just make the announcement of the show from time to time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we all set? Okay, I'm all set.
Hello, and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin. I'm very glad you're joining us again today. I am sorry we had a little interruption here at the very beginning. However, we will make up for that like flying on a plane when the headwinds are behind you, not ahead of you. So today, and the subject itself is going to help us take flight. It's called Brain Power. We're very pleased to have with us the author, Michael J. Gelb of Brain Power, Improve Your Mind as You Age. He actually co-authored this with Kelly Howell. We'll have her on another occasion. Michael is also the author of some 12 or so books, including How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. And he goes around the world, really, speaking to Fortune 500 companies, the CEOs and other executives there, teaching them how to innovate, how to be creative in their thinking. In short, how to use their brain and creativity in ways to increase performance, how to come up with new ideas, how to think out of the box. That's his gift. And we're very gifted to have him here with us today so we can learn something about this for ourselves and tune into the value of his long-standing work and his latest book. So, Michael, thanks so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
Good. I'm so glad. So if you would just come a little closer to me so the audience who happen to be watching can enjoy our dialogue visually. Wonderful. So what is it that first inspired you? I mean, were you like a really good student, or were you like a really bad student that had you start in on your studies of high performance?
Gosh, was I a good student or a bad student? I think I was a good bad student. Or maybe
Paradoxical.
or a bad good student. Well, there's a great tradition. Leonardo da Vinci.
I'm playing with you, of course. I just wanted to know what excited you about this.
Well, I can tell you, is Leonardo da Vinci had to be taken out of regular school because, as Vasari, the first art historian, explains it, he confounded his schoolmaster by asking too many challenging questions. Thomas Edison had to be taken out of school. His teacher said that his brain was addled because he couldn't pay attention to the lessons. He was always daydreaming and doodling. Einstein was told by his teacher, literally, you will never amount to anything. And he also was taken out of a regular school and put into a special school. So I didn't realize how lucky I was in the good company I was in.
Right.
In ninth grade in Passaic, I was at Lincoln Junior High School, and my teacher said to me, "You will never amount to anything." So I got to tell you something great.
And you said, "Thank you."
Right. I didn't know then that I was in the tradition of Einstein and Edison and Da Vinci.
Just subconsciously.
Right? Just subconsciously. But the best thing is, years later, I was in Madrid speaking at this leadership colloquium, and they had invited a number of authors, and we were having the authors roundtable luncheon or something, and we all had name tags. And I'm looking at this woman, she looks kind of familiar, and sure enough, she went to my junior high school, and she's there because she wrote this best-selling book about Machiavelli for women. And she's looking at me, she said, "Michael Gelb, wait, Lincoln Junior High School. Oh my God, Miss Callie's class." I said, "Yeah, she told me I'd never amount to anything." And this lady said, "That's what she told me." So that's how you wind up at an author's colloquium. and then we asked ourselves the question, was it a reverse psychology intervention that she used to motivate us? No, she really wanted to just crush us. But we rose anyway.
She meant it.
She meant it. She meant it.
So interesting. But it shows how much inside the box she is, that she could not conceive, with all due respect to Mrs. Callahan or whomever, that, she couldn't recognize the attributes of brilliance. I would put it that way.
Well, it is. I mean, it's not
outside
it's
of
just
academic,
being outside of the box.
It's
outside, right. But the great thing is, I'm really grateful to all of my, let's just be honest, bad teachers.
Yes.
And that was just one example of many, because although I write about how to think like Leonardo da Vinci, how to innovate like Edison, I use all these lofty role models. I learned at least as much about how to teach and how to help people learn and how to learn myself from all my bad teachers, because I would sit there in these dreadful, boring classes that tried to crush my imagination, and I would think, someday I'm going to do something about this. So that's the real answer to your, that's where the passion to help people understand how the mind works, how to develop it, how to be more creative, how to live a more fulfilling life. And now our world is so crazy, you have to be a genius just to be happy.
Exactly. So that's your next book, I think. How to be genius enough to be happy. Exactly. Well, you have aggregated a huge amount of really interesting research here. And I would love for you to talk about this, because it shows how the subject of nurture versus nature, so important and so well outlined in the great film Trading Places, if you recall, Dan Aykroyd, right? And Eddie Murphy.
Absolutely. One of the great classics.
Truly. I'll bet you $1. $1. $1. And so here you actually also corroborate that and show the research that does how important attitude is. And I was just reading one of the studies of these two groups of elderly men were put together. I think it was Harvard. And could you just tell us that story?
Sure. This is the famous counterclockwise study,
right?
Conducted by Ellen Langer. And the study is significant when it's going to be made into a movie. starring Jennifer Aniston as Ellen Langer. They're really making a movie of this study.
Oh, really? Oh,
because it's so stunning. These two groups of older men, both who were in the care of others.
Family
or
a senior
citizen assisted living situation. They two groups sent up to this retreat in New Hampshire for a week. The first group has a pleasant week, and they're encouraged to reminisce about their lives 20 years previously. This took place in 1979, so they're asked to reminisce about their lives 20 years ago.
And these men were approximately of what age?
70, 80, and up.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lovely time, showed some improvements because, of course, they tested them in everything you can imagine, every physical dimension, their perceived sense of well-being, their mental acuity, memory, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So the group that reminisced, showed a few improvements. They had a relaxing, nice weekend, but nothing too dramatic. The second group, same retreat center, they weren't encouraged to reminisce. They were encouraged to live as though it was 20 years earlier. And they set up the decor. They showed movies that were new releases 20 years earlier. They showed the football game, the championship, that was the championship 20 years earlier. They played the music that was popular and the current events. They had the newspapers of the time and the participants.
Communism versus capitalism.
All the big issues,
whole
right?
thing,
Yeah, the Cold War was really just getting underway. And they lived, in other words, as if they were 20 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
They showed dramatic improvements on all the measures, the physical measures, the perceived well-being, the mental acuity and memory. But my favorite image from the experience these men had that week was that literally their fingers lengthened in the course of a week. So shriveled arthritic fingers began to release and expand and open as people shifted deeply their idea of how old they were. The great, it's Martin Luther King Day today, isn't it?
It is.
So it's great to pay tribute to Satchel Paige.
Exactly. In fact, this show must be dedicated in honor of Martin Luther King, no question about it.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Well, Satchel Paige, who overcame amazing discrimination to become a major league pitcher when he was 40 years old, said the immortal words, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you was?" So, whoa. So, but here's where we take this to the next level, and here's where this is relevant to all of us.
Yes.
Because most of our listeners aren't going to go off to a retreat center and imagine that they were living 20 years ago. It just illustrates a point that is huge and critically important for all of us. Because in our lifetime, when we were growing up, and this applies to just about almost everybody, because if you're under 30, actually it still applies to you anyway, because the paradigm, the scientific consensus when we were growing up was that your brain is fixed. It's done at age 5. So after that point, you're either smart or dumb. And we test you and we measure you and put you in the smart class, the dumb class. That's it. There's no hope of improvement or change.
You're cooked.
You're cooked. And even if you're in the smart class, what's going to happen to you after age 30? You are heading into a slow, inevitable decline. Deterioration from 30 onward. So that was the accepted scientific understanding when we were all growing up. And even if you grew up when this started to change, we haven't shifted out of that old mindset. Or the other way to say it is, we haven't integrated the new understanding of science. And this is a consensus now. I talked to lots of neuroscientists and the research behind this Brain Power book.
Yes.
The only debate is what's the best way to improve your mind as you age. So age 5, yeah, a lot has taken place, but effectively you go on creating your brain for the rest of your life.
I think what really goes on by age 5, Michael, is largely the development of personality more than actual brain function. Brain function is happening, but it continues to grow, but it by no means is it fixed.
Well, it's not fixed. That's the key. A lot of it has taken place by age 5, and let's be.
But that's of a psychological nature. It's different than a material physiological nature. Related, God knows, but not identical.
Not identical. Let's take the other view for a moment and just say, a lot of who you are and your potential is. You're predisposed through genetics to all sorts of things, some good, some bad. So, again, now the debate is from Trading Places. We've always tried to say, is it nature or is it nurture? Which one is dominant? And there are people, as there are in most issues, who say it's all about, everything is determined by genetics. And other people say, no,
destiny.
You're totally free. You can change everything and nothing matters. Well, my guess is it's around 50-50. It's around 50-50. And let's say it's 51-49 one way or the other. All that counts, all that matters is what do we do with the part that is...
We're given. That we're given.
Yeah. So whatever you're dealt, how are you going to play it?
Exactly.
And then the strategies for playing it, that's where this book comes in, because now we know, age 30, your brain's designed to improve with use. You can go on improving.
That's a very interesting comment. First of all, a lot of this audience knows that the brain continues to grow and expand, and that brain cells are replaceable, and it's not a fixed scenario. But the idea that you highlight in this book, Brain Power, Michael, goes in a sense a step further to say the brain is designed to continue to improve over time. That's a nice concept. What is the science behind that?
I got to back you up just a little bit too, because part of why we wrote this book is that what we discovered is even very sophisticated people that we know who are familiar with the idea of neuroplasticity and familiar with the idea of neurogenesis. So cognitively they understand that.
Yes.
But in terms of their own deepest inner mindset,
belief system,
they have not integrated the new paradigm.
Exactly.
And these are the kinds of people also know how important your belief system is, yet they forget something and they say, "Oh, I'm having a senior moment."
Exactly.
What kind of programming is that for your system?
But this is part of, as Werner Erhard called it, the background listening, the cultural listening. We're all living in a world of consensus. And how many of us are really the salmon swimming upstream all the time, moment to moment? Not many. Some are. So I totally appreciate your point.
And even if you're swimming, and it is swimming upstream, to have an attitude, because here's the other thing is then everybody's into anti-aging. Well, I'm sorry, that's a loser's game as well.
Right. That ain't going to happen, folks.
Right? In the battle between you and the universe, I'm betting on the universe.
But you can age gracefully, elegantly,
intelligently,
and healthily.
Optimal.
Now, another point that underlies this whole idea of brain improvement is also kind of really runs parallel with the idea of wisdom being cultivated over time. And like the old phrase, youth is wasted on the young. However, that doesn't have to be so. That ain't necessarily so, as the song says. So what is the science that, I know you quote a certain neuroscientist in here about that. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those great...
I mean, I understand intuitively and commonsensically. I just want everybody else to understand.
But that's what's great is we love when things that are intuitive, commonsensical, especially when they are recommended by all the world's great spiritual traditions, turn out to be scientifically valid.
That's right.
Isn't
that fun?
We love when that happens. So we look at the attitudes that are conducive to the most graceful, intelligent process of adding years to your life.
Lay it on me.
Right,
and what are the nutritional supplements also?
Right.
What's the diet?
You got it. Well, I say you have to take a daily
goji berries.
Take a daily dose of GFH, which is Gratitude, forgiveness, and humor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Gratitude, forgiveness,
Beautiful.
and humor. Optimism. So,
How much per day?
as much as you can handle. You can't have too much gratitude, forgiveness, or humor. In my view. In my view.
In one area, there's no such thing as excess.
Just bring it on.
Wow.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Beautiful.
And optimism goes hand in hand as well. So Langer's colleague, Becca Levy, did a long-term longitudinal study with 650 subjects, some with a negative attitude towards aging. And how did she measure this? It was the way they used language. It was the way they responded to language. They said, my best days are behind me. I'm not what I used to be. I'm having a senior moment. All those sorts of self-hypnotic, negative self-talk type phrases. Versus the people who express gratitude for the opportunities, who let go of resentments, who had an optimistic, positive attitude that embraced the adventure of today and tomorrow, whether they're 50, 60, 70, 80, or beyond. So she followed those two groups. The positive, optimistic attitude group outlived the negative attitude group by more than 7 years on average.
Oh, my.
It's serious. And I was talking to
Start thinking positively, folks.
Some people say, "Oh my God, I'm a pessimist now. I'm really screwed." But I knew there was no hope for me. But that's why, But see, this is the thing: is people need guidance.
Yeah.
In our wacky world, we need guidance in retuning these attitudes and rewiring our brain for resilience and brilliance. That's one of the little subsections in our book.
Yes.
And you really touched on something so critical, because we are swimming upstream if we want to be positive, because any kind of media that you look at, the overwhelming image of people even above 50 it's in a pharmaceutical advertisement.
Commercial.
It is.
Doing Tai Chi makes me sick.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Dave Barry, who wrote fantastic book. This was called Dave Barry Turns 40. So this was his aging crisis book, and he writes. He says most contemporary media makes the process of aging appear about as attractive as death by maggot. So we are swimming upstream, and you can know cognitively about neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, but then it takes a real intention and a real commitment to rewiring. And my view is we need all the help we can get in our world as it's structured today.
Indeed.
So brain power. This is supposed to be a manual. What are the research validated, really practical things that the average person can do? So yes, there's and we get into all these esoteric things and micronutrients and all this stuff, but are you doing these basic things in a consistent daily way? If you are, I expect you will have a much happier, longer life.
Exactly. If you do both, you work with the mental condition, you work with the brain/nervous system, and you work with the reality of the nutritional and oxygenation and sleep and exercise. One is always complementing the other. These are not separate things. These are one.
Oh, I
mind
so
and
much.
body. You know that very well. And we laugh about it, but the fact is that's the truth, and all the science corroborates that. Why would there be a scientific medical discipline called psychoneuroimmunology if that weren't even recognized by the rather otherwise dinosaur-like form of medicine, of the medical establishment? So even there in that community, they recognize it.
Leonardo da Vinci 500 years ago said, "Avoid grievous moods and keep your mind cheerful as the key to health."
Oh, yes.
He said, "Eat a healthy, wholesome diet of the freshest foods you can find."
There you go.
I mean, so this is universal wisdom passed down through the ages.
And Hippocrates said, "Let thy food be thy medicine." And there was also an inherent understanding in the Greek philosophy and pre-Socratic philosophers that attitude was virtually everything. My Tai Chi teacher used to say that all the time. Even though we're doing these movements in this rather sacred way that's passed on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the real thing, Mitchell, underneath all of this is your attitude toward your doing it. But what about Qi and Dantian and circulating around the meridians? Your attitude is you.
That's my Qigong master used to say, Qigong is mind. Qigong is mind. Then secondary is the breathing.
Yeah.
Third thing are the actual movements that we do.
Yes, that's right. That's in the hierarchy,
Right.
In fact, Lynn McTaggart, who we had on some time ago in her book on the field, talked about exercising. Now, I enjoy exercising, but she talked about research that was done, Michael, of people visualizing themselves working out with weights and running around a track. And when measured cardio-wise, etc., they actually showed as much and sometimes more improvement than people who are actually doing the physical lifting of weights. In a sense, it just corroborates more of what you're talking about here.
And we get messages continuously, billboards, radio, except for this show, TV, magazines,
PRN.
that tell us just the opposite.
That's right.
That we are victims, that we are at the effect of everything around us.
Exactly.
That if you believe that your attitude is important, you're self-delusional, Pollyanna, New Age, silly person, and then it's satirized brilliantly. I mean, some of it's actually pretty funny. There's a core issue here too, which is how do you accept with full humility all the ways that you're not empowered, all the ways that you are acting like a robotic, unconscious machine.
Victim, exactly.
And all your scripts and all your genetic predispositions and the shadow which drives you, which is unconscious, by the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, so we know lots of fabulously brilliant conscious people, but they're often the most dangerous ones because they really think they're fully conscious. And I'm sorry, the nature of the shadow is, you're opening, but here's all the part you don't see. Yeah. So you better have that humility. And at the same time, with all humility, you ask for grace, the grace of invoking beauty.
Exactly.
Surrounding yourself with influences consciously and intentionally that help align you with wisdom, with your highest purpose. Again, we all know this from every tradition. Now there's research behind it. I mean, my favorite.
So it's obviously true.
Well, what's great is
right.
What's great is these like this one study I found. They actually demonstrated. Get ready, drum roll. Older people are wiser. Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Just remember that the word humility and the word humor probably come from the same ancient Greek root.
Human.
Yes, exactly. There you go. I'm reminded of this funny conversation, Michael, of my girlfriend, who's actually some 15 years or so younger than me. Sometimes I say, Sharmila, would you please I need a massage on my neck and shoulder and back. And she turns to me and she says, oh, my arthritis. I said, it's just a little hand massage, please. Oh, I can't do it.
Well, you have to work on her.
Yeah, right.
So she can work on you.
And it's just so funny because she knows how I feel, which is your book, and she knows how untrue it is. But it is still, and we're all subject to it, this consensus and the bombardment of the media, etc., that is just out there to sell product. That's what they care about.
Based on fear.
Sell product.
Based on fear.
Exactly.
And the other side of it, too, is not just the negative images of older people and this societal notion that we all grew up with of planned obsolescence.
Yes.
So the warranty expires, it breaks down, so we can sell you another one.
Exactly.
That attitude has pervaded our sense of human beings. And then pick up any magazine and look at the. I mean, I get Departures magazine. It's the American Express magazine. So it's for people who travel all over the world and stay in nice hotels and want to have all these great things. Mm-hmm. And it's it does make us laugh every time we get it, because it's the most non-Buddhist publication I've ever come across. But I like all sorts of different stimuli, and I like to read about places all over the world and great places to stay and visit.
Yes.
But I look through at the clothing advertisements, and the models are maybe 16, 17, 18 years old. But the demographic of the people who get this magazine, average age is probably 40. Many older than that, because they've been working long enough to be able to afford to buy all this junk and go to all these places. So the image of what you're supposed to find alluring is some teenager wearing these clothes. I said, why is this teenager wearing these clothes? There should be somebody
of age
who can afford them, who's
right.
wearing them. But
what are you going to get a body like that too if you buy the
exactly.
clothes?
Well, that's the illusion.
That's the illusion.
And it's part of this whole complex. Is you should always be forever young, anti-aging. No. That again is just going to make you unhappy.
It's just such an illusion.
It's
Maya, as we say in the old
big
world.
Big time Maya.
We are speaking with Michael J. Gelb. This is Mitchell J. Rabin, and we are exploring the brain. Based on the work, his latest book called Brain Power, Improve Your Mind as You Age. And please know that we're on Progressive Radio Network, and we're here every Monday at 6 p.m. So please join us every week. And if you're not already a member of our newsletter and part of the A Better World community, go to www.abetterworld.net and get to be part of it, because this is the kind of thing we do. We enjoy growth and development, personal growth, and expanding the paradigm. So, Michael, I'm just so glad to have you on the show today.
It's fun.
Really, I'm so glad. And the work you're doing, you bring this then to corporations. I got to tell you, on one hand, I'm very excited about that, and on the other, it kind of concerns me, because these guys oftentimes have very deep pockets, and I think deep pockets are a very good thing, and I think beautiful clothes and all of that are also wonderful things. I've got no problem with it. I come from a Buddhist and Taoist point of view where pleasure and enjoyment brings forth novelty. And novelty, as we know from the point of view of the brain, is one of the richest kinds of foods you can give the brain. And if we have an attitude that every moment is novel, we become a Zen monk that's got enlightened. So all that to me is good. But when it comes to the having of deep pockets and perpetuating actions in the world that are not so salubrious and harmonious and congruent, give it to me, baby.
No, bring it on.
Then
Absolutely.
for them to be armed with your wisdom and research begins to concern me, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Love it. Thank you. I love that question.
Okay.
So first of all,
you mean you've heard it many, many times?
I've been doing this for 32 years.
Okay, you have heard it once before.
I've been working with organizations around the world for 32 years. And first of all, the scorch the earth, exploit the worker types never hire me.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the first point.
Interesting. They don't want to exploit you also and get the gems of wisdom.
It's happened once or twice, but it ended right away.
Monsanto didn't hire you?
It ended right away. That's all I can tell you.
Oh, okay.
Because it just wasn't a fit, because I wanted, like all of us, this generation with this awareness and consciousness who've been on a spiritual search and so on, I wanted to help change the world. And so I studied personal development and various spiritual traditions and ways of integrating those spiritual practices into everyday life, and worked with some fascinating people and started to develop seminars. And I was telling you before we got on the air about a series of seminars I did in the early 80s, sponsored by a group called Quest
out in LA,
who introduced Gene Houston to this country, and neurolinguistic programming, Bandler and Grinder. And
I studied with Bandler back in the early 80s.
I gave him his first mind mapping lesson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at a Quest seminar. Oh. So I was going around the country.
So that's you he stole it from.
No, not stole. Just blessed, given, shared freely, because I learned a lot of NLP from him.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And his disciples.
Yes.
So I'm traveling around the country, and it was great. I mean, I had hundreds of people for a 3-day seminar. Nobody does anything for 3 days now. They don't have the time. But it was a 3-day seminar. But I saw that it was like preaching to the converted. I said, this is preaching to the choir. I said, if I'm going to make a difference, I have to go where the money and power is. And I actually moved to Washington, D.C. because I thought, well, maybe I can help. I thought that was the place where creative thinking was most needed, which, despite my tenure, still continues to be the case.
You happen to be right.
But then I said, well, you know what?
Thinking? What is thinking?
But I said, the problem with government is the only criteria for judging their performance that they use is getting elected again. So there's no real performance criteria. Whereas I realize with businesses...
Well, there's one. A single one.
Yeah. It's
re-election.
Re-election. So it's just a
It's a very narrow band.
Yeah. Whereas in business, it seemed to me that an enterprise had a very down-to-earth marker of its performance.
Oh, you and I are on the same page, man. We're on the same page. I totally get the reasoning. And you actually answered the question when you said it's self-selecting.
Yeah, I got even more, but there's even more. There's even more.
Please.
Because, so I saw, okay, these people are positioned, these are the most powerful institutions in our world today, corporations.
Right.
I saw that both for good and for bad, in terms of destroying the environment or taking advantage of people, sometimes they're really bad. In terms of funding your local museum or your opera or your theater,
PBS,
or your park,
PRN,
right? They're really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, could be really evil, could be really good. Hugely powerful, most powerful institution. I'm making connections with these people who are looking for ways to raise the consciousness level of these organizations, and help people evolve and grow as they meet their performance criteria. So I thought this is the direction to focus in. So over the years, I continued that vision. And then what emerged is something called the conscious capitalism movement.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, okay, well, I was doing a series of seminars at George Mason University on creative thinking and innovation. And they were sponsored by a gentleman named Raj Sisodia, who is now a professor at Bentley. And it's Raj who wrote the book Firms of Endearment, which is a business school study that shows that companies who treat all their stakeholders consciously, who look out for the welfare of all their employees, all their vendors, their communities, as well as their shareholders, make more money over time, are more successful over time. So now there's a whole movement of conscious capitalism which says we want to reorganize the very core foundation of an organization, of a company, so that it is
along these principles
and holistic and attuned to a systems approach to our existence on the planet, which also, in my view, is also a spiritual approach.
By all means.
By all means. So I'm now the director of creativity and innovation for the Conscious Capitalism Institute.
That's fabulous.
And it's my passion come to meet
fruition.
An actual official, or when I started there was no name for it.
Sure.
It's just what I wanted to do. Now there's a movement.
There's conscious capitalism, there's compassionate capitalism, there's socially conscious investing. There's an entire, I'm
the whole world. The
rather
whole world
deep in that world.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad to meet the director of such. Really, I think it's fabulous.
Right?
No, I'm laughing, but I'm very serious because I really think that, I've always put it this way, Michael, it has been the big corporation that has brought us to this utter brink of disaster where we really are on the brink right now, and on all levels, by the way, economically, environmentally, and politically. And I believe that it will be the engine of business that brings us back back into, the so-called promised land. Thank you, MLK, again. Truly, I do. I think it's going to be the awareness that you're teaching, and I as well, in the business world and leading businesses to see. It's also, oddly, more profitable, as you said. Doing things correctly is more profitable. And I saw that honestly as a teenager.
Yeah.
And I said it to my father. It doesn't make sense to pay the costs of fines for polluting the air, Dad. Change it. No, really. I mean, this just doesn't make sense.
And
when they could just do it correctly, and their kids, they have kids. They want to breathe clean air. It's just so much common sense.
So
let's get around to
yes,
something
that's right.
else. Thank you
Sure.
very much. I know, I totally
pleasure.
appreciate the answer. I'd like, for talking about common
Yes.
sense, for our audience to get some idea of what they can do on their own, in the comfort perhaps of their own home, to have their own brain gym, so to speak. What can people do to begin to improve their brain, whether they're 20 or 75 or more?
Yeah. One of the critical research validated things you can do is to learn something new every day. So everybody's familiar. They always say, oh yeah, should I do some crosswords or whatever, but it's not that simple. If you do crosswords, great, but you have to keep doing more difficult crosswords. The idea is to challenge your brain.
Increasing complexity.
Increasing complexity and challenge. So Professor Joe Verghese at Tufts University and his colleagues did this long-term study. What are the learning activities that are best at preventing dementia?
Mm-hmm.
Chess and bridge, mental sports, right at the top of the list. Learning a new language, which, by the way, people say, well, only children can learn language quickly, but Professor University of Michigan, been studying this for years, found adults are better language learners. We just have to learn like children do.
How to learn.
Right. Well, I put instructions on how to learn, literally guiding people how to take the fear out of learning, because the problem with adult learning is now you control your environment. In school, you had to do what they told you. So if you were bad at art, but they made you do art, and everybody laughed at you when you drew your airplane that didn't look like an airplane, my airplane got hung up on the wall as an example of what an airplane doesn't look like. But it's flying
on the wall, though.
But this is the thing is this is part of what inspired me to do what I do now, because I said there's got to be a better way. The danger is when you're an adult, you control your environment, so you don't have to draw. You don't have to do music if you didn't feel you had talent for it. So we tend to become narrower and narrower, only doing the things for which we have a natural
inclination.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But to get yourself to go and do something where you really feel like a beginner, this is probably the best thing you can do for your brain. You only need to do it 15 minutes a day. I mean, you may want to do it more, but learning a Tai Chi form. I mean, I remember I started training in Tai Chi a couple of years ago, and I'm a 4th degree black belt in Aikido. I'm used to being the sensei, running the class. Oh, thank you very much. And now I'm a total beginner, and I learned the Wu long form.
Oh,
I mean, there's a lot of movements in that baby.
Right.
But the great
how long?
Right? Yeah. Right, that's my teacher. That was the feeling of utter discoordination and uselessness. I knew. See, here's the great thing is I say, I'm getting maximum brain benefits from this, because I have no idea where to put my feet. I have no idea what move comes next. And being in that space of not knowing, guess what's happening in your brain?
Figuring out. New dendrites, man.
Neurotransmitters send over to quadrant X for minutes.
It's mission possible.
Right, mission. So novelty, learning something new. I mean, the study.
That's fabulous.
The study.
Chess,
bridge.
Something novel, language learning. I love that.
Language learning.
I just love that.
Learn a musical instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And there's information in the book about a whole project to help adults over 50 learn an instrument. Tremendous success. There's this amazing story. The woman who is one of the facilitators of this, Professor Midori Koga, her father took up piano in his 80s and gave his first concert at age 88, which is a very significant birthday in Japanese culture. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And you know, part of why I have to say, I have to give thanks to my own mom and dad. Because my dad's 83, my mom's 80. They are so engaged, so vibrant. They do all the things in the book. There's actually a reference to them in the book as role models. My dad says, you know, nostalgia isn't what it used to be. He's not focused on the past. He's the soloist in the choir. He leads the wine tasting club. He works out at the gym. He takes Tai Chi. My mom was a therapist in the Passaic County mental health clinics for many years. She now leads 2 discussion groups a week there. They don't call them therapy groups.
Discussion groups.
So you know and they model so much. You know, another principle is engagement with others. Learning to invest. This brilliant Dr. John Cacioppo coined this term, which I love. He says, invest in your social wealth. We all think about our 401k.
That's very interesting.
I
love that
the
idea.
older you get, you know, as George Burns said when he turned 100, he said, I'd like to go out with women my own age, but there aren't any left. So the older you get, the more consciousness you have to bring to cultivating friendships.
Right.
But this is not just nice. This is keeping your brain alive, making new connections, sharpening your mental acuity, and preventing dementia.
Yeah, that is fabulous. I would imagine also travel could be a dimension of that, where you are seeing new sights, new sensory awareness, in other words, new sights, new smells, new sounds, and you have to orient yourself, you know, especially a Westerner in an Asian culture, for instance. I know, I love it.
It's
myself.
I mean, when you just get off the plane in India, your brain is going through serious rewiring.
Exactly. Have I seen this before?
I am not in Kansas anymore.
Exactly.
I love it. Love it.
No, it's very true. Now, what is that? That's a wonderful story. In fact, there's a wonderful story also in your book, Michael, about that older gentleman. I think he was 90-something, and he ran. He ate well, and he said that not least one should flirt a little bit every day.
Big time. Big time. And you know, there's a chapter.
Sex life is a very important thing. Talk about that.
Well, this is another one of the massive, overwhelming, negative societal hypnosis.
True enough. I know exactly what
crimes that has been perpetrated.
That there's no sexual impulse among the elderly. It couldn't be less true.
And that there's no sex, because there's lots of it, and it's actually more fulfilling, more beautiful in so many ways. So I wrote this chapter. I really had fun doing this on improving your sex life after 50, and then.
What's 50?
Well, then it says
50 is like, you know.
But then it just says
kid stuff.
It will also, if you pay attention, will also improve your sex life before 50. So it's just universal principles. And Dr. Walter Bortz is 80 years old. He wrote Living Longer for Dummies. He's run 40 marathons. He's been studying the process of aging for many, many years, and he uses himself as a subject. And he really couldn't be more clear that your sexuality is a function of your overall health and fitness and your attitude, not your age. So, like you said, you can be much younger and out of shape and not fit and not alive and not as sexy and not as able to enjoy a fulfilling sexual experience, or you can be 70 and much fitter, have a much more wholesome, intelligent, wise, gracious understanding of intimacy and loving kindness as it is played out in sexuality, and have a much more fulfilling sexual life. So And all I can
Very
tell you
true.
is, so I put together this chapter on improving your sex life after 50, and I said it'll improve your sex life before 50. And all I can tell you is my gorgeous, fabulous wife is 23 years younger than me. And all I can tell you is she posted on Facebook that I wrote this and that everything I wrote is true. Thank you, sweetheart.
I personally attest.
Hallelujah.
I know I can speak for myself. AJ, nothing to do with it.
Right.
But, I personally had a very fortunate time in graduate school where I met the author of The Sex Researchers, Ed Brecker, who I was all of 24 at the time, and he was probably 74. And I was taking a Reichian-based sex therapy, 10-day intensive workshop, which was a lot of fun. And he was one of the staff, one of the teachers, and he made a film on aging and sex and sexuality. And it was so eye-opening for me because I was a kid and seeing that older folks of his age were as sexual and more, as you're suggesting, as people much younger, and that they brought a maturity to it that, younger folks really aren't able to bring. So I was shocked by that, and, I'm just my own naivete. I had never thought of it quite like that. My grandparents? What? Really? And the answer is yes, and why not? And of course, now that I'm on my way and, aging myself, I like to think gracefully, I see, of course, who would have thunk anything differently? So, I really appreciate that you cover that. I'd like to, in our remaining minutes, go into the subject of synchronization of the brain, the idea of brain coherence, and how that relates to the whole idea of aging gracefully.
Yes. Well, my co-author, Kelly Howell,
yes,
is the creator of BrainSync. She's one of the real pioneers in binaural beat technology.
I hung out with Brother Charles, we used to call him BC, back in the mid-'80s when we were doing Alpha Theta Delta and just spacing out with beautiful affirmations.
Yeah,
and I tuned in to that page on your book that you get the brain power download.
Correct. It's a free
you should
download.
mention that.
People buy the book, Brain Power, Improve Your Mind as You Age. We give you a free download of a BrainSync program designed especially to accompany the information in the book and help you improve your mind as you age. And the key element there, maybe the greatest contributor, whatever its source, whether it's from stress we get from negative images in advertising, whatever it happens to be. But as it says, in Dune, the classic line, fear is the mind killer. Well, so is stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the greatest challenge for us to manage in order to age gracefully. And again, we need all the help we can get. So we give guidance on how to get a happier, healthier sleep. And I have to tell you, I'm not an easy sleeper, so I've really studied this and practiced it.
And you've used Kelly's...
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the thing. So there's information, how to sleep, how to rest, how to get the most of naps, how to meditate. That's in the text of the book. But some of us have trouble falling asleep. Some of us has trouble taking a nap. Some of us have trouble sitting still.
You are troubled, my son. I can speak with you about this.
So the great thing is, what if you could put on some headphones and in 10 minutes have your brain, if you need to sleep for, let's say, lulled into delta waves.
Yes.
And even more thrilling is, what if, you're not the world's best. Kelly's going to write an autobiography one day. It's going to be called Diary of a Bad Meditator, which is part of her inspiration for creating BrainSync.
Surely.
Because you put on these headphones.
And you're gone.
10, 15 minutes, we can measure your brainwaves. They're the same as an advanced meditator. So all of a sudden, you're getting this experience of peace and oneness. And a lot of people have transcendent experiences just from the brain sync program. So we wanted to I'm so passionate about this book because it's not just about helping individuals. Every individual, if you read this, if you do this, this is the proven practical stuff that will prevent dementia and enrich your life. But it's more than that. It's a public health issue.
Yes.
We have tens of millions of aging people. If they apply the simple principles here and get the free download
We'll
of
save
BrainSync,
billions, if not trillions,
hallelujah,
publicly.
brother. That is,
Absolutely.
That is the mission. That is the goal.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Michael J. Gelb, for this good work. And it has ramifications in so many directions. And I agree with you completely. It really is a health issue on all levels for all people. And the younger you get this message, the better.
And can we send people to michaelgelb.com to learn more all about it?
Definitely. Spell it for people who
my last name is
challenged.
Gelb, Michael, Michael, Gelb, michaelgelb.com.
Wonderful. Thanks again for being on the show.
My pleasure.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. Visit us at our website, of course, at www.abetterworld.net and really digest this information. This is very rich, neuroscientifically based material that will help us all lead more impassioned, loving, more interesting, and interested lives. So on that note, I look forward to seeing you all next week. And remember to tune in to our weekly TV show on Tuesday nights at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can watch it in Manhattan on television or on our website, abetterworld.net. And this week we are repeating our interview with Lama Surya Das, the comic Tibetan Buddhist. Thanks again and see you next week.